Hi, I'm Farmer Samson Obole. Welcome back to class. Welcome back to class. So we'll be looking at how to build strategy for your business. We're looking at how to build strategy for your business. And in the past couple of classes, we've looked at first. So we are using the Porter 5 theory by Michael Porter that was established in 1979 on how to build strategy for your business. So first we looked at number one. So remember that we drew like a picture to always make us remember. So this is you from this perspective, the core business. You have your suppliers and you have your market. So we said the first issue that might occur as somebody in business is what we call the number one is new entrants. And we said that the more people that you have in the business, the less your profitability, because one, your suppliers have options of who to sell to, so they have more power, and two, your market has options of who to buy from, so they have more power, and all of this takes away from your profitability. Then two, we talked about the bargaining power of suppliers. So we also said that there is a kind of a power that your suppliers can wield that can also reduce your profitability. Then three, we talked about the bargaining power of the buyers, that's the market. The bargaining power of the buyer, that's the market. Now, obviously, we understand that as a core business, we are either into one of two things or both. So we are either into product or service. So every business, you are either product, service, or product and service. So it is either you are in product, service, or product slash service. Now, another area where there can be a threat or or an issue usually that you need to build a strategy around is alternatives to what you do. Alternatives to what you do. So we call that the threat of substitute product or service. The threat of substitute product or service. Threats of substitute product or service. So this is again another core area of discussion. The threat of what's the word? Substitute product or service. Threat of substitute product or service. Because now the reality is, it is one thing to have your suppliers having issues, having the power, buyers having the power, but there is a threat around the product or service that you provide that can also again be a cause for concern. Again, just like the other areas that we talked about, where we looked at the factors or the characteristics to look at that can help in, what's the word now? Help to analyze or help us to properly build a strategy. Yeah, that's the word. So the number one is the number of available substitutes. Number of available substitutes. So you need to know. So for example, I am into tomato production. I need to know, okay, what are the substitutes to what I am offering that the customers can pick from? What other things can people use to replace what I am doing? So what are the number of available substitutes? So for example, I have tomatoes. Let's say Padma, that's your plum tomatoes. But there are tin tomatoes, there are tomato pastes, there are what's the word now? Powdered tomatoes, etc. All of these are substitutes that are available in the market that can be used as a replacement for tomatoes. So notice that I am not saying my tomatoes versus other tomatoes, because basically they are same kind of product, but we are looking at things that people can go for instead of tomatoes. So I can decide, no, I don't want tomatoes, I want tin tomatoes. No, I don't want tin tomatoes, I want tomato paste. No, I don't want tomato paste, I want powdered tomatoes. So all of these are available substitutes for the tomatoes. So you need to know what are the substitutes that people can use for your product. Because remember what we said, I think in one of the classes, that the most important thing about your product or your service is the customer buys it because of a job to be done. So there is a job that they want to get done. There is a job they want to. There is a something they want to do, and the way to get that thing done is by using your product or your service. So for the job to be done, when we say available substitute, we are asking what other substitute can get that job done. So yes, I need tomatoes for stew, but there are other substitutes I can use to still get my stew done. So what are the available substitutes for your product? You need to know, so that you know what are the what's the word now? You are able to now build a structure for or against those substitutes, or most likely against those substitutes. So what are the substitutes for my product? Because if you know the substitute of your product, it helps you to properly do your marketing campaign. Either you are saying, oh, come and buy our tomatoes because it is fresh, it is this, no chemicals, no preservative. Or you are the tin tomato seller, you are saying, come and buy the tin tomato, the price is the same all year round, it doesn't fluctuate, whether in season or out of season, the quality remains the same, this and all of other stories. So it helps you know how to what's the word now, package your story properly. That's number one. Number two is buyer's propensity to substitute. Buyer's propensity to substitute. So it is one thing to have substitute. Now you've known, okay, again I'm using tomatoes as an example. We already know, oh, for my tomatoes there is tin, there is paste, there is powder. Now all of these are options that the tomato seller, that the tomato can that can be used to replace what I am doing. But what is the buyer's propensity to the substitutes? So it's one thing for these substitutes to be available, that you know. It's another thing to know what's the likelihood of a buyer going for these options over the fresh tomatoes. Because if you know that, then you will know, okay, where is the issue likely to come from? How do I package my product? How do I place my product? Where do I sell to? Who do I sell to? So you are in a place where they are probably having, like, where they have let's say where students are, and you understand that, oh, most of the time students want something sharp. So it means that there is a high propensity to go for any of these over this. I don't know if that makes any sense, because based on the kind of buyer you are looking at right now, they would rather pick these options over this fresh tomato option. But if you are in a place where you have more of the elderly that care about their health and all of that, there is a higher probability that they will go for this over this. So it means that where I have the elderly, the amount I spend on marketing will be lesser. But where I have the youth, the amount I'm going to be putting on marketing and all of that will be higher. Why? Because there is a higher propensity that they will go for the substitute. That is, but on the flip side, if it's in a field, maybe I have not started and I'm trying to start the business, it only makes sense to understand, okay, oh, these are the substitutes for what I want to bring in, and the propensity of the buyer is to go for this substitute. So do I want to follow where the money is, or am I trying to build a market niche for myself and try to get the people, the cost of acquiring a customer to my end? Then that makes sense. Next is number 3, relative price performance of substitute. The relative price performance of substitute. So we know that to a large extent, what will determine whether people go for tin tomatoes over fresh tomatoes is usually price most of the time. So people will just look at, if I buy 100 naira tin tomato, pot is full. 100 naira fresh tomato, pot is not full. So it means that based on cost, people may switch more to the what's the word now, processed tomatoes over the fresh. And I'm using tomatoes. You can use any other product that you are working with to also make, but I hope this makes sense what I'm trying to explain. So the price can be a determining factor, which means the buyer's propensity may be to go for fresh, but when they consider price, it may be to go for thin. So you need to know, okay, looking at it from the price perspective, the cost effectiveness, would this customer most likely choose my product because it is cheaper, or would they pick another product that has a better price, what's the word, a better pricing and whatever for them? So look at the price that you are setting for your own product, compare that to other services or to other substitutes available. Or if you are offering a service, look at the price for your own service, compare that price to the substitute for similar service, and ask, what would most likely happen? Would this person most likely prefer to buy from me based on price, or go for the substitute because they are a cheaper option with better performance? Number 4 is perceived. Your perceived level of product differentiation. Perceived level of product differentiation. So I have heard a couple of folks say things like, oh, if you use tin tomatoes or paste or powder, it does not taste the same way like using fresh tomatoes. So interpretation, there is already a level of differentiation between the fresh and the this. So it means that if as a fresh tomato seller, it is my job to try to re-echo that sentiment, that no, when you are doing tin and all of that, you are not getting the same freshness. It's not the same. It's not same quality. So what is the perceived level of product differentiation? Because if a customer has options, you are selling A and they have option B, C, D, and they feel and believe that, oh, there is really no difference in taking any of these over these, then it means that you are losing that customer. But when the customer feels, oh, if I leave this, there are some things I would lose, there are some things I will be cutting myself off of, then there is a high probability that they would rather remain with your product. So what is the perceived level of product differentiation? So looking at the substitutes that are available for what you do, is there something that differentiates you that they will lose out on? The fear of losing out follow if they do not buy from you. I don't know if that makes sense. Or is it that even if they use other products, there is really nothing they lose out? So buying from you is not really, what's the word now? Is not really necessary like that. I don't know if that makes sense. So that's number 4. Number 5 is what we call switching costs.